Major Garrett here in Washington. Let me welcome you to the Takeout. We did not expect to start tonight with Article 92 of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. We are, because a debate, if you can call it that, broke out today over what it means, and calls by the President of the United States for charges of treason against 6 Democratic members of Congress. Treason, as you might know, is punishable by death. President Trump amplified a social media post calling for the lawmaker's death by hanging. This, ladies and gentlemen, is where we are. Article 92 of the Uniform Code of Military Justice says service personnel must obey lawful orders. Failure to obey lawful orders can result in court-martial. There is, however, an important qualifier. Okay, folks, sit down for this one, because what I'm about to walk you through is one of the most documented military casualty cover-ups in modern American history. On April 1st, 2026, the Intercept's Nick Turr published an investigation titled, quote, "Casualty Cover-Up. The Pentagon is hiding U.S. losses under Trump in the Middle East," end quote. The reporting documented at least 15 U.S. troops killed since the beginning of the Iran war, more than 520 U.S. personnel injured, and the Pentagon was systematically undercounting both numbers. A U.S. government official explicitly used the term casualty cover-up to describe what CENTCOM was doing. On April 22, 2026, The Intercept reported the Pentagon had inexplicably scrubbed 15 wounded in action troops from the official tally without explanation. The number went from 428 to 413 overnight. The Defense Casualty Analysis System tracks deceased, wounded, ill, or injured service members for Congress and the President. It is missing hundreds of known casualties per the Intercept's analysis. Can you believe this? But before we go any further, real quick, let's be honest. You can't really trust mainstream media anymore. That's why we built Pump Politics, to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. Military personnel have a duty to disobey a manifestly illegal order. That means the order's illegality must be clear and obvious. Examples: orders to target civilians, orders to falsify documents, orders to commit crimes. Americans trust their military, but that trust is at risk. This administration is pitting our uniformed military and intelligence community professionals against American citizens. Right now, the threats to our Constitution aren't just coming from abroad, but from right here at home. Our laws are clear. You can refuse illegal orders. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, join our free newsletter. We'll send the news straight to your inbox every day. Just click the link in the description to join. And if you just want to support what we're doing, join us. Be part of the community that actually cares about the truth. All right, let's get back to the video. Let me walk you through the specific casualty numbers first, because the gap between what Trump says and what the data shows is staggering. Per the Intercept's reporting, at least 15 U.S. troops have died since the beginning of the Iran war, as of early April 2026. 6 of them were killed in a single drone strike on Port Shuaibah, Kuwait. Another soldier died in an enemy attack on March 1, 2026, at Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia. More than 520 U.S. personnel have been injured per the same reporting. Almost 750 U.S. troops have been wounded or killed across the broader Middle East since October 2023, per the Intercept's full analysis. The Trump administration's count was at 13 deaths and roughly 300-something wounded. The actual count documented by careful journalism is significantly higher. The Pentagon has refused to acknowledge specific casualties. CENTCOM has gone dark on questions. The Office of the Secretary of Defense has clammed up. Think about what the specific 385 to 428 to 413 sequence reveals. Per the Intercept's April 22nd reporting, on the day the Iran ceasefire took effect on April 8, 2026, the Pentagon's tally of U.S. dead and wounded was 385. Despite a pause in hostilities, the number rose to 428 by Monday, April 21st. Casualties were being added retroactively. Then on Tuesday, April 22nd, the count dropped to 413. 15 wounded in action troops disappeared from the tally without public comment. Pentagon spokespersons told The Intercept they could not field questions because only the duty officer could answer, and that person was not at their desk. A day and multiple follow-ups later, The Intercept had received no explanation. 15 specific wounded American service members erased from the official record without explanation, without accountability, without the duty officer ever returning to their desk. Come on, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? With the specific Major Sorefleet Davies case. Per the Intercept's reporting, Major Sorefleet Davies was a signals and communications officer with the New York Army National Guard. He was assigned to the headquarters of the 42nd Infantry Division. He died on March 6, 2026, while deployed at Camp Buehring in Kuwait in support of Operation Epic Fury. Republican Congressman Mike Lawler said at his memorial service, quote, "He passed away while deployed to Kuwait in support of Operation Epic Fury," end quote. CENTCOM Commander Admiral Brad Cooper recognized Davies while honoring our fallen at a Pentagon press conference. But Davies is missing from the Pentagon's official casualty rolls. He is missing from the Defense Casualty Analysis System tally. The man died in service. His congressman acknowledged it. The CENTCOM commander honored him, but the official record does not count him. That is the specific Pentagon practice The Intercept exposed. Real American service members, real deaths erased from the count. Now let me tell you about the specific Trump lies the casualty data exposes. On April 22, 2026, Trump repeatedly claimed during an interview that 13 male soldiers had died in the Iran war, per the Press TV reporting on The Intercept's findings. 3 of the dead were actually women, per the Defense Casualty Analysis System. 3 women whose service Trump did not acknowledge, whose deaths Trump misgendered in his public talking points. The President of the United States got the basic demographic facts of his own wars dead wrong on national television. Their families heard him misrepresent their daughter's service. Trump has repeatedly suggested U.S. losses were limited to a few friendly fire incidents. Per CNN's fact check, Trump described 3 U.S. planes shot down by Kuwait as the only planes really we lost, even though the very briefing focused on rescuing an airman from an F-15 downed by Iran. Think about what the specific F-15 shootdown reveals about the lying pattern. Per the Intercept's reporting, multiple military personnel were injured when a U.S. F-15 was shot down over Iran in April 2026. An A-10 Warthog crashed near the Strait of Hormuz around the same time. One of the Air Force officers from the F-15 who was rescued by U.S. Special Operations Forces during a Saturday night mission was bleeding rather profusely. That is the actual Pentagon language about the F-15 pilot's condition during rescue. Bleeding rather profusely from a downed aircraft. While Trump was telling the public the war was pretty much complete and U.S. losses were minimal, the pilot's blood was on the rescue helicopter floor. The president was on social media claiming overwhelming victory. The gap between the rescue mission's medical reality and the social media rhetoric is the specific lie The Intercept exposed. The specific Defense Casualty Analysis System failures deserve real attention. Per the Intercept's reporting, DCAS tracks deceased, wounded, ill, or injured service members for Congress and the President. It is the official mechanism by which civilian leadership monitors military casualties. DCAS lists 13 hostile and non-hostile U.S. deaths during the war and provides their names. But DCAS is missing Major Davies. DCAS does not include non-hostile injuries, only non-hostile deaths, meaning if a soldier is hospitalized for illness or accidental injury during the war, they may not appear in casualty counts. The system has hundreds of known casualties missing per the Intercept's analysis, including those who suffered smoke inhalation aboard the USS Ford, including additional soldiers wounded in attacks the Pentagon has not officially acknowledged. The accounting itself is broken. Then the political leadership exploits that brokenness to minimize public awareness of the war's cost. Let's really dig into the full picture. All right, so let's really peel this whole thing back, because understanding the specific scope of Trump's casualty lies and the Pentagon cover-up requires looking at multiple documented categories. The Intercept's casualty cover-up reporting is one major category, where Nick Turr documented systematic undercounting and missing casualties. The 15 disappeared wounded in action soldiers on April 22nd are another major category, where the count dropped from 428 to 413 without explanation. The specific Trump lies on television and social media are a third category, where the president misrepresents deaths, gender of fallen, and aircraft losses. The systematic dismantling of civilian casualty oversight is a fourth category, where Hegseth gutted the entire infrastructure that previously documented war's human cost. Four documented patterns, all on the public record, all representing exactly the kind of casualty deception the Intercept's reporting exposed. Let me walk you through the specific Port Shuaibah drone strike, because this single incident illustrates the scale of the loss the administration is hiding. Per the Intercept's reporting, 6 U.S. personnel were killed in a single drone strike on Port Shuaibah, Kuwait. 6 American service members dead in one Iranian drone attack on a U.S. forward operations facility. That is more U.S. troops killed in one incident than in any other single attack of the Iran war. 6 folded flags, 6 funerals, 6 families processing the loss of a son or daughter or spouse, 6 military communities mourning, while Trump was on Air Force One on March 7th, telling reporters, quote, "We're winning the war by a lot." And the Port Shuaibah dead happened during the period he was claiming victory. The administration's casualty count buried these deaths within broader categories. The names of the 6 were eventually released, but the specific incident's deadliness has been minimized in administration messaging. Think about what the specific 251 Army casualty figure reveals. Per the Intercept's reporting, while much of the focus on U.S. forces has centered on air and naval power, it is the Army that has suffered the most casualties, 251 Army casualties. According to Department of the Army statistics, the Army soldiers manning interceptor missile systems on Gulf bases have absorbed the bulk of Iranian drone and missile attacks. They have been wounded in larger numbers than any other service. The Army is only now seeking sensors designed to assess blast overpressure, the sudden onset of pressure waves from explosions. Blast overpressure can cause cognitive impairment and traumatic brain injuries. Trump has long dismissed brain injuries as headaches and not serious. He used that exact framing during his first term. He continues using similar framing now. Soldiers with TBI, traumatic brain injury, are being told their wounds are not serious by their commander-in-chief, while their actual injuries can be career-ending and life-altering. The specific CENTCOM media response pattern deserves real attention. Per The Intercept, CENTCOM spokesperson Captain Tim Hawkins sent a statement on Monday claiming approximately 303 U.S. service members had been wounded since the start of Operation Epic Fury. The comment was 3 days old. It excluded at least 15 wounded in the Friday attack on Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia. CENTCOM was sending journalists outdated numbers without flagging that they were outdated to produce undercount narratives. Quote, "Since The Intercept began asking hard questions about undercounts of dead and wounded personnel, the slow walking of statistics, faulty accounting measures, and arcane casualty counting procedures, both U.S. Central Command and the Office of the Secretary of Defense have clammed up." End quote. Translation: when journalists started asking hard questions, the Pentagon stopped responding. That is not normal military communications practice. That is a deliberate information blackout to manage political narratives. This is wild. Come on, are you kidding me? With the specific Wikipedia documentation of casualties, because the 2026 Iran War Wikipedia article aggregates the publicly available data. Per the article, almost 1,937 people have died in Iran during the war. According to Al Jazeera, the article notes, quote, "On the first day of the war, the Shajara Tabay Girls Elementary School in Manab was hit by an American attack." According to Iran, the school was located near the Seed al-Shuhada military complex, of which it had once been a part. While the number killed was not independently confirmed, Iranian state media reported that more than 175 people, mostly children, were killed while 95 were wounded. End quote. 175 dead, mostly children, 95 wounded from a single American Tomahawk missile strike. Per the article, preliminary findings from an American military investigation indicated the strike resulted from outdated targeting data. American soldiers using outdated targeting data killed 175 people, including 120 children at a girls' school. Trump told reporters, quote, "I don't know about it," end quote. Think about the specific Hegseth dismantling of civilian harm offices. Per the Senator Warren and Senator Van Hollen letter to Secretary Hegseth on April 19, 2026, Hegseth specifically dismantled the civilian harm mitigation and response infrastructure before the Iran war started. Per ProPublica reporting cited in the letter, quote, "The U.S. built a blueprint to avoid civilian war casualties. Trump officials scrapped it," end quote. Per Politico cited in the letter, quote, "Hegseth ignored military officials when he slashed offices that limit risk to civilians," end quote, including CENTCOM Commanding General Kurilla opposing the cuts. Hegseth scrapped the existing infrastructure over military professional opposition. Then the Iran war launched. Then the Minab school strike happened. Then 175 people died, including 120 children. Then the casualty cover-up began. The sequence is documented across multiple major news outlets and official Senate correspondence. The specific April 1st Easter lunch revelation deserves real attention. Per the New Republic reporting, the White House mistakenly uploaded Trump's remarks at an Easter lunch, which was supposed to be closed to the press, to YouTube on April 1st, 2026, before realizing its error. In the speech, Trump fantasized about being a king, admitted there was no money left for health care or child care because of the war he started, and dreamed about seizing all of Iran's oil. Said, quote, "We're fighting wars. We can't take care of daycare. You got to let a state take care of daycare, and they should pay for it too," end quote. Translation: the president admitted the Iran war he started has consumed federal capacity to provide basic services. While the administration was simultaneously denying the war's cost, the accidentally uploaded video documented the gap between Trump's public victory framing and his private acknowledgement that the war was bankrupting other priorities, including childcare for working families. The specific Paula White comparison to Jesus deserves attention as the surreal background of the casualty cover-up. At the same Easter lunch, Trump's spiritual advisor Paula White Cain compared Trump to Jesus Christ. Quote, "Jesus taught so many lessons through his death, burial, and resurrection. He showed us great leadership. Great transformation requires great sacrifice. And Mr. President, no one has paid the price like you have paid the price. It almost cost you your life," end quote. Catholic theologians called it blasphemous. The Reverend Benjamin Kramer called it taking Jesus' name in vain. Jesuit priest James Martin said White Cain crossed a big line. While the Pentagon was scrubbing wounded soldiers from the casualty list, Trump was being compared to Jesus. While Major Davius was buried in obscurity outside the official tally, Trump was being told no one had paid the price like he had. The juxtaposition captures the moral disorientation of the cover-up. The specific Senator Warren and Van Hollen letter context deserves real attention. The letter dated April 19, 2026, from Senators Elizabeth Warren and Chris Van Hollen demanded specific answers from Hegseth on civilian harm in the Iran war. The letter cited the 175-plus dead at the Minab school, cited the New York Times analysis showing Iran's schools and hospitals in ruins, cited the Pentagon's preliminary inquiry finding U.S. fault in the Minab school strike, cited the WHO Director General's statements. The senators specifically asked, quote, "What share of those civilians killed were from U.S. operations?" End quote. Quote, "How many civilians have been injured over the course of the war?" End quote. The Senate's questions reflect the same information vacuum the Intercept's reporting documented. Even U.S. senators with security clearances are not getting straight answers about civilian harm. The administration is hiding casualties from journalism, from the public, and from Congress. Now, let me be completely fair for a minute here, because I want to present all sides honestly today. Defenders of the administration's approach will make several arguments worth considering. They will argue that operational security limits what specific casualty information can be released in real time. They will argue that DCAS reporting has always lagged behind battlefield realities. They will argue that some discrepancies reflect normal bureaucratic processing delays rather than deliberate undercount. They will argue that civilian casualty assessments require careful verification and cannot be rushed. They will argue that wartime communication necessarily emphasizes confidence to maintain force protection. Those are fair points worth considering. Operational security exists. DCAS lags happen. Bureaucratic delays occur. Verification matters. Wartime confidence has tactical purposes. But here's what makes the defense impossible to sustain given the evidence. The Pentagon scrubbing 15 wounded in action soldiers from the count without explanation is not bureaucratic delay. It is active subtraction. Major DeVias being missing from DCAS while being honored by his congressman and CENTCOM commander is not lag. It is omission. Trump's specific public lies, 13 male soldiers when 3 dead were women, and the only planes really we lost, when the briefing focused on a downed F-15, are not communication confidence. They are factual fabrications. The Hegseth dismantling of civilian harm offices over military professional opposition before the war started is not security calculus. It is deliberate elimination of accountability infrastructure. The Senators Warren and Van Hollen demanding answers represent congressional oversight that the administration is actively obstructing. The defense essentially asks Americans to accept that wartime presidents may lie about casualties, scrub wounded from official lists, and dismantle civilian harm oversight without consequences. That is not security. That is cover-up. All right, let's break this whole thing down into clear points you can take with you today and share with others who need to hear this story. 4 main takeaways from the Trump lying about Iran deaths and the Pentagon casualty cover-up scenario we've been discussing today. Point number 1. The Intercept's Nick Tur published reporting on April 1st and April 22nd, 2026, documenting systematic Pentagon undercounting of Iran war casualties. At least 15 U.S. troops killed since the war began. More than 520 wounded. Almost 750 U.S. troops killed or wounded across the broader Middle East since October 2023. A U.S. government official explicitly called it a casualty cover-up. The Defense Casualty Analysis System is missing hundreds of known casualties. CENTCOM and the Office of the Secretary of Defense have stopped responding to questions from journalists. Point number 2. The Pentagon scrubbed 15 wounded in action soldiers from the official tally on April 22, 2026, without explanation. The number went from 385 on April 8th, ceasefire day, to 428 on Monday, April 21st, to 413 on Tuesday, April 22nd. Pentagon spokespersons claimed only the duty officer could answer questions about the 15 disappeared casualties. The duty officer never returned to the desk to provide answers. The Intercept received no explanation. The 15 specific wounded American service members were erased from the public record without accountability. Point number 3. Trump's public statements specifically misrepresent the war's human cost. He repeatedly claimed during an April 22nd interview that 13 male soldiers had died, when 3 of the 13 dead were actually women per DCAS. He described 3 planes down by Kuwait as the only planes really we lost, while the briefing focused on rescuing an F-15 pilot down by Iran, who was bleeding rather profusely. He has dismissed traumatic brain injuries as headaches that are not serious, while Army soldiers manning interceptor missile systems have suffered 251 documented casualties, many involving blast overpressure exposure that can cause TBI. Point number 4. The casualty cover-up is connected to the broader dismantling of civilian harm oversight. Defense Secretary Hegseth eliminated the civilian harm mitigation and response infrastructure before the war started, over the documented opposition of CENTCOM Commanding General Kurilla and other military professionals. Per ProPublica, Trump officials scrapped the blueprint built specifically to avoid civilian war casualties. Per Politico, Hegseth ignored military officials when he slashed offices that limit risk to civilians. The Manab school strike then killed 175-plus people, including 120 children. Senators Warren and Van Hollen sent a formal letter demanding answers on April 19, 2026. That has not been adequately answered.